Three, two, one, here we go. RAINMAN'S Take podcast. Observations on the world we live in. My take on current events and other topics of interest. Also interviews with some really cool people. So let's get the conversation going. Welcome back, my guest, Mike Oristian. Mike, how you doing today?
Hey, how's it going, Ram, man?
Good, good. As you all remember, I've had Mike on a couple of times. He's sort of my politics guy when I want to talk about what's going on, not only local politics, but also on the world stage. I try to get Mike on. Very well read, very into politics. And as you remember, he actually a couple of years ago ran in the California 53 congressional primary here in San Diego. So very glad to have you back, Mike. And what have you been up to with yourself lately?
Well, I struggle. I had a bout with COVID in July. Put me down for a little bit. Some extra infections that prolonged it probably a little bit, but made it through. So for my 48th birthday, I got myself some natural immunity to COVID. The original version, the original variant, as I lost my sense of taste and smell, and they say that the Delta is not doing that. So, yeah, that was put me out for a couple weeks, but I'm back, happy to be on the mend and happy to be healthy, and definitely was interested to see what all the health professionals say when you get COVID.
And actually, that's a good point. Now, do you have immunity to any of the variants right now? What do they say about that?
They say that if you get the original strain of COVID, it's a very broad-based form of protection. In fact, and we'll talk about that later maybe, but that's one of the main things that Robert Malone and the founder of the mRNA vaccine mechanism, he's been saying. This whole antibody dependent evolution, the ADE that's happening, basically, the big worry that we have with all these vaccinated people is that they're vaccinated for the single strain of virus, right? And but it doesn't give you broad immunity, and so what happens is in a host that it doesn't kill, these new variants get a chance to turn into superbugs. Because we've effectively given them a human reservoir in which they can evolve.
Yeah.
So, and that's the big worry that effectively the large vaccinated populations, and you're seeing it, in these 100% vaccinated countries like Gibraltar and Iceland and whatnot, you're seeing all these massive COVID outbreaks, and they're going, why? We have like almost everybody's been vaccinated,
right. And
it's because they're these viruses, these variants are using the hosts to iterate, and then if they and then as they iterate, they can infect. So. It was, for me, being through the health system, very interesting to kind of hear you kind of learn the canned phrases that they use. You talk to a couple different health professionals that use the same sentence, that that's part of their training, right? So one of their trainings was, first of all, they shame you for not getting the vaccine. Secondly, they have a line that says, I can treat the side effects of the vaccine, but I cannot treat COVID. That's one of their lines, because I heard it from 3 different professionals. Mm. So I say, okay, so what can you treat death? Can you treat blood clots, aneurysms? Can you treat myocarditis? Can you treat all the top five side effects that you see on the VAERS website? And and of course, they have nothing for that. But and then the current line is that the vaccine is 60% effective on reintroduction of infection, but it's almost 99% effective to get your natural immunity. So that's what I got for my 48th birthday. Yeah. Natural immunity, baby.
Wow, it's so bizarre right now that you almost get the sense that the way they're pitching this whole booster shot is that, they're trying to get everybody who has already been vaccinated. And I got vaccinated early on because I volunteered down at the vaccination station down in San Diego, but it's almost
Which one did you get? Did you get Moderna or Pfizer?
Yeah,
or?
Moderna. And all you're hearing right now is, they're really it's almost like they've given up on, I guess they're sort of letting the social and the cultural pressure be put on the people that decided not to get the vaccine, but all the ones that did, they're pushing the booster shot sometime in September. So at this point, there's so much out there, literature out there on both sides of this thing that, I have no idea what is up and what's down, It's crazy.
Well, I mean, you as a vaccine recipient, I don't want to get you, worried or whatever, but I definitely, I think you should check out Dr. McCullough, the things that he's been saying. And, these are not these are people who have built their entire careers on epidemiology and vaccination. So Dr. Peter McCullough is a great guy to check out, all of his stuff, and then Robert Malone. And then Geert van der Bosch in Germany has been, these guys are all signing the warning signs. So, but you're in the program now, man. Now you got software updates. You're like the Norton's antivirus, right? Now you got to get a booster, then you get another booster, then you get another booster. I mean, when does it end? When does it end? And how many people are going to fall off the program and be like, "Look, I'm over this." You told me the whole reason for the vaccination was to be able to go back to normal and be able to socialize with people. Okay, yeah. All right. So you did that, but no, you still got to wear a mask. Now you still got to wear a mask, and you still got to you still have restrictions on what you can do, and then you need another booster shot. And so I really think they've got to be at saturation in terms of what they can do. And the key stat is that over 65 we have more than 92% vaccinated. Okay, so it's like, if I don't fault anybody who's older wanting to get vaccinated, and because the risks are too high, but and I had a bad bout of COVID, but I still would do it again. I would still go through it I still would do it with my own natural immunity going in there. And, I didn't take ivermectin. I didn't take hydroxychloroquine. Then Fauci's starting to say, we need to explore antivirals as another thing. It's like, we were banned from Facebook in spring of 2020 for suggesting that antivirals were something that needed to be part of the strategy. So in my opinion, it's been a massive fail. The question is whether or not it was nefarious or oversight. You can say that for each of these things. The Afghanistan withdrawal, the vaccine strategy, epidemiology strategy. They're doing it poorly, no doubt. Right. Are they doing it poorly on purpose, or are they doing it poorly for just is it malfeasance? Is it intentional? Is it or is it accidental? And so that's the deal.
Yeah, and I can kind of relate to physicians when they say, hey, it's and I've not heard many say this, but some do. And, they're like, it pisses me off when somebody comes in that has it, that didn't get the vaccine. It's like, now you're trying to get everybody else now you're exposing everybody else to something that so it's
well, does the vaccine work or not?
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Does the vaccine work or not? It's like this whole thing, there's a who's on first parody going around, where it's like, you can't come in. You're not vaccinated, but you're vaccinated. Okay, so you're vaccinated, you're protected. No, I could still get sick. You can still make me a carrier or whatever. Like it's nonsense. It's
Yeah.
the vaccine either works or it doesn't. And yes, I understand these people are putting themselves, at risk with sick people. But you can't have it both ways. It's either it either works or it doesn't work. Now I think we've determined that it doesn't quite work, but I think we also have determined that I mean we still have a very low case fatality rate. We have an infection fatality rate of less than 3 in 1,000, and that's across all age groups. And the real numbers, if you look at it, with people with diabetes, obesity, any number of other things. So I mean, I would guess that in my age group, at my health level, I probably had 1 in 10,000 chance of dying
Yeah.
upon getting infected. Those are chances I'm willing to take because God knows that there's any number of things that are higher fatality rate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's not to me. For me, the feedback is if we are really in such shortage where all these institutions are struggling to meet the demands of, oh, we have a crazy surge of COVID, then if that's really the case, they wouldn't be firing healthcare workers and first responders who refuse to take the vaccine. If we have a human resource crisis, if we really have a human resource crisis in these emergency rooms, then you're not going to fire people who are not unwilling to take the vaccine. It has nothing to do with them. It's their own risk factor, and yet they're being let go. And you see, you see these terrible stories of people who have, are either having to quit the fire department and now, by September 15th, the entire military has to be vaccinated or sayonara. And so what, they have to be dishonorably discharged for not wanting to take the vaccine. It's absurd. We're gonna reduce our a chance at national security. And if it's such a problem, then why have we let over 1 million people through the southern border with no COVID tests, and probably in a lot of cases, in some cases, kind of like encouraging their spread to all these cities, especially the red states, right? I mean, like it's and then we have Obama have his big birthday party on the 7th of August, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, or I mean, look, you got to see right through it. The only way to convince liberals that this thing is nonsense is to show them the hypocrisy of it. You cannot have 25,000 people at Lollapalooza over the weekend and decide to put the lockdown in effect in Chicago on Monday after, Lori Lightfoot and all these jokers are out there, partying with the fans right next to each other, no masks, whatever. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. And we said this last summer with the BLM riots, and then, this is and then they come out with these statements like, there is no evidence that Lollapalooza was a super spreader event. Oh, but this over here, Sturgis,
Right.
the same weekend was a super spreader event. It's like, you can't, these are lies. They're lies. They need to be called out on lies. And I refuse to have these conversations with people when they won't own up to some consistent set of logical pieces that fall together. You can't do it.
And that's actually one of the things that's probably going to be the overarching theme of our conversation here today, and that is just the hypocrisy of the mainstream media, big tech, all the ones that are basically in control of our information. That I think is probably the most dangerous thing that's happening currently right now is the actual censorship of information coming out there, so that if you only watch CNN, you're basically being lied to through omission. It's and that to me, I think is so dangerous, and we are such a
And the reality is when you're over the target, that's when they cancel you. Okay.
Yep.
The key. Look at this week. You have Dr. Zev, right? Zelenko, the Hasidic Jewish guy who is responsible for treating in upstate New York. He was the counterbalance to Andrew Cuomo's ridiculous letting of COVID infected seniors back in their nursing homes. He successfully treats 6,000 people with his Zev protocol, right? Which is the Z-Pack, which is the HCQ, which is the ivermectin. He is, a stalwart, and he's out there. He was, advising Trump on his when Trump did he didn't do remdesivir, he did the monoclonal antibodies as a treatment, right? Because that's kind of the Cadillac treatment for this
Right.
thing. You're good to go in 12 hours. And he is completely, as of, I think I sent you, maybe I sent you one of the interviews he did, and then the very next day he was
Yeah.
outright canned
Yeah.
everywhere, to the point where his personal Zelenko MD website was taken down. I mean, when you are that over the target and they
Yeah.
take you, and then the guy who interviewed him a week later, Stu Peters, says, don't worry. If your employer is requiring you to get vaccinated, here are the places you can still work without being vaccinated: the CDC, the WHO, Moderna, Pfizer. You get illicit off of Twitter, immediately off of Twitter. Canned him off of Twitter for saying that, for saying outright truth,
Yeah.
straight up truth. These organizations that are pushing the vaccine do not require their employees to be vaccinated. If you cannot see the hypocrisy in that,
Yeah. Yeah.
then you are an idiot. You are an absolute idiot. And they're doing this. They are doing this, and they are shaming everybody. And I'm sickened. I'm sickened by it. And whether or not this is, and you got all these whistleblowers. I mean, you have God, I'm blanking on his name, a lead guy at Pfizer, and some of the people who are like responsible for selling any number of Pfizer's things, talking about, hey, why is there graphene oxide in this? This is like an electrically conductive thing. All these different pieces, and it's like as soon as somebody hits something right on the head,
Yep.
then they disappear. And when
Yeah.
you disappear like that, it's sort of like find out what the last thing they said was, because whatever the last thing they said either resonates truth or is the truth.
Yeah.
It's like I've been following John Here to Help on Twitter for a long time. This guy has been through the ringer with the Obama administration. He's very high up, managed CSIP's been taught. And what was the thing that got him off Twitter? Well, he said, "Oh, well, we're looking for suspect number 240 or 250. Looking for suspect number 250. You know who suspect number 250 is? The one that planted the pipe bomb outside the Capitol on J6. We got to find this guy." And he shows a picture of suspect 250 and a picture of Judge Emmett Sullivan's oldest son.
No way. No way.
Off of Twitter.
Yeah.
Off of Twitter. Almost 200,000 followers running for Congress in D.C. This guy was raped by the DOJ. Raped by the DOJ in prison. Knows all the games, knows exactly what was going on with the Rosenstein, knows exactly what was going on with Pence, knows the real story of Osama bin Laden, knows all these things. Been a truth teller for all this time. And he says that when he put the picture of Judge Emmett Sullivan's son right next to suspect number 250. And and the FBI's going, anybody who has any idea who can help us find suspect 250, you know damn well who suspect 250 is. He's one of your own. He's one of your own. This whole thing was a false flag. That thing is to beat all the election integrity people into submission.
Yep.
Do not question this election. Do not question November 3rd. Domestic extremists, we got a guy in a pickup truck outside the White House or outside the Capitol right now, and I'm sure he was put up to. I mean, look, they go home, like, oh, let's make sure everybody's gone for the summer break from Congress, and then let's have this guy be this threatening dude outside the thing. Look, it's nonsense. These false flags are such nonsense. They got to stop. They got to stop shaming conservatives from pointing out the truth. We are all the media now. We are the media. We're all finding this stuff. We're all digging. We're finding it. We're finding the truth, and they're still just trying to like beat us down. And I'm angry.
Yeah, and you're seeing it in the mainstream news outlets. They're just losing. They're hemorrhaging viewers, and so now it's the next level, which is the social media. And I mean, right now, you are not allowed to be critical of Biden's handling of Afghanistan on his Twitter account. They're there's all of their rules. It's what I find amazing is that all these other things are popping up, all these other alternate social media sites. So it's almost like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like they're shutting out their disciples from any other any other vantage point on a certain situation. And I mean, that's just, it's so
Yeah, but
dangerous.
the job of the press is to lay out the facts.
Well,
And when they
exactly.
tell you that they're
Yeah.
editorializing, they tell you they're editorializing.
Yeah.
The disservice they've done to, because we knew damn well that Biden was going to be a disaster for foreign policy, but they spun this narrative
Yeah.
that Trump was indeed the one that was going to get us into wars, and that was going to get us get us killed and be bad for our safety. They knew damn well, and people, there's a good, I think I said this stat before, there's a good 6% of people who said that they would have voted differently if they had known all the information. I mean, who loses 3 laptops, and those laptops
Don't get me started with that.
being in
Unbelievable.
the possession of Christopher Wray and these guys, and yet they can't, and they discount it as Russian disinformation. Well, no, if you actually knew that, you could predict that that Biden was going to capitulate on Afghanistan, because God knows what other things we got going on over there, right? Like the opium, the poppy, the drug trade that's been happening over there for whatever, who knows how all that, the money handling and money laundering. You saw Julian Assange in 2011 said, Afghanistan is a war that's designed not to be won. It's a money laundering scheme that's just going on. He said that in 2011, and now here we are another 10 years into it, looking at this stuff. And then fundamentally, the Biden administration needed to fumble terribly in Afghanistan, because that's what their handler. I mean, the fundamental problem I have talking to liberals is they have this Pollyanna mindset that says that the government is out to do good. I mean, our government is not out to do good. Our government is out to serve itself. And our government that's serving itself right now is serving a deep state globalist agenda that wants us to capitulate to a new world order, and and all of those people are paid off at the highest level. So whether it's medical tyranny and requiring vaccination and potentially depopulating our country, or basically just giving way. I mean, first Afghanistan had to fall. Now they're going to go take over Taiwan, and then what's next? A land invasion for us. I mean, we are going to be, as soon as they rid people of some guns, they're going to be, taking over. They're going to either take over the East Coast or the West Coast. I don't know how they're going to do it, but we're going to be dealing with a war on our soil for the first time,
Well,
since our domestic thing.
Yeah, and that obviously is the projection out to the absolute worst case scenario. The only hope I have, and I've been watching I watch a ton of old shows about the Nazis. Just it's a fascinating cautionary tale. But they were talking about how he basically came to power, and he just essentially just rode roughshod over the general population, and to the point where there was no desire for any type of resistance. Right. Thankfully, in our case here in the United States, I think there's still, at least I'm hoping that there's still enough people out there that if it were to really go down, then bullets are going to start whizzing over people's heads, I think. And so I can only hope that there's
well, yeah. I mean,
group.
He was on Time Magazine. Look, the American media has always loved. First of all, they love monarchies. They love. Look at their obsession with the royals, right? They love absolute power. They love absolute power. They love Mussolini. They loved Hitler. They love Woodrow Wilson. They love FDR. They love absolute power. And the truth of the matter is that they funded it. Back in the day, they funded these things. And
that book, Wall Street funded Hitler.
Yeah. Well, there's a great, I can't believe it's still up on YouTube. You got to check out, it's about 2.5 hours. It's all about, it's the rise of the Illuminati from 1760, before the beginning of our nation, Myron Fagan. Just look up Myron Fagan's speech on the Illuminati on YouTube. Fascinating. And everything makes sense today in the context of what were the goals. What were the goals? We are going through a color revolution right now at home, But the thing is, the ultimate Trojan horse, the ultimate way to take over a nation is to, if you can convince them that it's not happening while it's happening, that's the ultimate Trojan horse. And that's precisely what's happening. I mean, this is an outcropping of Saul Alinsky. This is an outcropping of exactly these things. And so if we can't convince the 50 plus million people who actually voted for Biden that this is what's happening, and that there's no rainbows at the end of this.
Well,
this whole thing.
Yeah, and thankfully I think you're seeing this sort of grassroots uprising with the whole fight against the CRT in schools. You are seeing those school board meetings, and these parents are pissed.
Yeah,
and thank God for that, because I read a great article about CRT, what it is, and how you can fight it. And it's just, it's so insidious, and it's great to see these parents out there sticking up for their kids.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you see the parallels with this neo-Marxism, and you see, and it went everywhere, right? Like, I mean, all the Agenda 2030 stuff that was built into the Olympic. I mean, the Agenda 2030 logo is almost identical to the Olympics logo this year. I mean, like, almost identical. You almost can't tell them apart. Okay. And then all the stuff, and then the whole Simone Biles thing of like, it's like, oh, well, sometimes mental health. There's a focus on, look, winning is not really what's winning. We started with participation trophies, and this is the end result, is that, this whole idea of excellence, this whole idea of meritocracy, it's actually not what's up, guys. We really need to look for. I mean, what was the event? The karate guy, like the guy who knocked out the other guy, didn't get the guy who was who prevailed. They were like, oh well, it was too blunt of a force, whatever. So the guy who got knocked out gets the gold. I mean, you're seeing it infect popular culture, every piece of it, and it's all by design. This master ambiguity is by design to demoralize us and get us to a place where we're not willing to fight anymore, and it's working. I think it's working. There might be a resistance. For sure there's a resistance. And I love seeing these viral videos of Matt Walsh at his school board meeting in Nashville. And yesterday we had the viral video of the gal here with the San Diego supervisors going around. And I think it's great, what she was saying, we withdraw consent from you. We're not a hospital. You don't get to run this county, we're here to be, guinea pigs for your your fear of this virus. But it's not enough, and we're not going out there and fighting in the streets and doing these things for the most part, because that was the whole point of J6. Oh, you're going to come take selfies in the Capitol and say that this is not representative government, that Pence didn't do the right thing in kicking this thing back to the states to recertify. Oh, you can't, that can't be said. No, that resistance, not allowed. Oh, not allowed. Yep. Boom, boom, boom. Like, let's push these guys down. It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
And dude, and actually a couple of episodes ago, kind of gave my piece on that about the whole World Economic Forum and this whole 2030 thing.
I saw that one. I watched you do that one. I think you're right. Klaus Schwab. That's the goal.
In the history behind all these people these globalists that attend these Davos meetings, it's documented in books. Guys like the Roosevelt children, their main goal is to try to knock. The only way to establish that global governance is you got to knock America off its perch. And the only way to do that is to make Americans believe that this place is not as great as it is. And one of the things I said to myself in that episode was, we're still there. We're still that. The world wants to come here. And if they had their choice, they would live in America. So it's still there, but they're doing a hell of a job trying to knock it down.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, when you see what the motives of the Great Reset are, and you see what the investment strategies of BlackRock and these guys are, and this whole idea that, hey, you're going to own nothing, and you can't. Good luck finding a single family residence that's gonna dip from any lack of demand in a particular market, because these big private equity guys are just going to buy it up.
Yep.
Their goal is to own everything
Yep.
and rent out to everybody. You'll be a slave for the rest of your life. And you know that the whole American dream of building equity through sacrifice is going away. And what about people who have investment properties who have tenants that are not willing to pay because they have the moratorium on these on evictions? And it's like, oh well, there's no moratorium on paying your note to the mortgage bank for your property. So what are we doing? I mean, the goal is to just totally restructure capitalism. And, you know, yes. And like Soros says, you know, the big, you know, he just rewrite what he said. Well, the greatest impediment to democracy in the world is the United States. No. The last stand against global communism is the few patriots that will still stand up in the United States and say, no, there are first principles that are not being adhered to. We're not adhering to the Fourth Amendment search and seizure. We're not adhering to that shall not infringe on the right to bear arms, number 2. We are not protecting our First Amendment rights. These rights are not being protected. And, you know, the constitutionality of, you know, more than half of the things that have happened in the last 2 years is totally challengeable. And so, I mean, what's it going to take? Because, and then the other thing is, on the one hand, they want us to capitulate. On the other hand, they want us to do something violent. They want people to, you know, it's like the guy who annoyingly just keeps tapping you in your sternum and you're playing cool. Hey bro, back off until you finally sock him, and then you know, here comes the sirens. You're the bad guy. Yep. Oh, you're the bad guy. Well, you pushed me to the point of now you did. Okay, yeah. It's just not right. It's not right. It's happening. It's so enervating. Yeah. It is so enervating to go through this process, especially when people cannot see what is happening. Because sometimes it takes seeing the world through the prism of another nation. You see, Sydney, right? Melbourne. You're seeing these super low case rates. And they're going for zero COVID, or New Zealand's on lockdown again. They're going for zero COVID. They had a case, you know, somebody tested with a 50 cycle threshold PCR test, you know, was able to pop a PCR positive for COVID. Oh, okay, we got to lock it all down. And it's like, they already took the guns from these people in '96. If we would already be at the Sydney level of lockdown, if we didn't have our, you know, 300 million guns in this nation, because it's not that people are going to use the gun, but the professional first responder police person is going to be a lot more hesitant to go in to somebody's farm and say, sorry, you know, we're taking all this stuff and you're locking down, if they know there's firearms there.
Yeah. And what do you think is going to happen with the recall?
I mean, the polls today are saying that no is going to win, that no on the recall is going to win.
Really?
And I mean, it's such a. I mean, first of all, don't believe the polls, right?
Exactly.
Second of all, you're seeing all the news today of everybody scavenging through people's mailboxes. I mean, it's like, here we go. What was the problem with there were 2 problems with the November 3rd election. What were the 2 problems? One, we had mass mail out ballots. So there was just a flood of ballots for people who had no intention of balloting, and then all the dead people ballots that are headed somewhere, and someone's there to intercept them. And then the top down. You know, I want to talk about that. Talk about election integrity without getting your thing off the air here. But right, both those things happen. And here we are. Are we learning our lesson? No, we're not learning our lesson. Everybody in California got a ballot already, and they're scavenging through the mailboxes. So what do we think is going to happen? I mean, these people. I wouldn't be surprised if Nathan Fletcher and Lorena Gonzalez are out there hustling to find these ballots themselves to make sure, you know, no gets voted.
That was on the news this morning.
What's that?
That there are people going.
Oh, there's a ton of viral videos about people. You know, a ton of people. So, how do every apartment complex, the sanctity of those mailbox keys, the postmaster's keys for the mailboxes? Come on, they're everywhere. You think it's hard to get a postmaster's key? So they get a postmaster's key. They're going around to I mean, they're just literally stealing these ballots out of mailboxes. It's going to be the same thing. You're going to show up to vote, or you're going to send in your ballot, and then they're going to be like, oh, well, this has to be a provisional because we already have the ballot for this person.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's absolute nonsense. And I don't know if you watch the frankspeech.com stuff, but everyone's like, oh yeah, Mike Lindell is a bust. It's not a bust. Not a bust. He has the receipts for some of these packet captures at the top level, and he laid out exactly how each of these states went, and it was across the board. And you know all the story about Staple Street Capital and Dominion going bust in May 2020 and having the buyout, all of this stuff. I mean, basically China ran our election. UBS Beijing has the biggest stake in Staple Street Capital, which owns Dominion, which has, I mean, we one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that they shared at Frank's Beach was the guy, the PhD, Doug Frank, who got up there and was, is kind of Lindell's partner in this whole thing of discovery. And he says, okay, so you're going to tell me, he goes, all right, let's do Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Let's flip a coin 83 times and let's see. So there's 83 demographics, right? Basically they do from 18 to 100, right? If you look at every slice, so you can start voting at 18 and let's just stop counting at 100, even though people over 100 probably vote. But so there's 83 slices there. He said, check this out. You want to see something cool? Go to every state in the nation. Okay. Look at what the voter turnout is in a particular age group. Okay. Particular age group, like 18, 19, 20. There's a certain voter turnout relative to what the census says was the population of each of these counties, okay? Without exception, no exceptions. This is very compelling. Without exception, in each of these states, whatever the voter turnout was for a particular age group in a state, it was the same across every county in that state. Every single county in every single state had the exact same voter turnout relative to the census for their state. Even counties that abut each other but are in different states and have typically the same turnout demographics and whatnot. Right. If you got Kentucky and Kentucky and Tennessee, either side, okay. Whatever the turnout was in this county was relative to the state. All the same within the state.
So
all the same within our state.
So what is that telling us?
What it says is there was a top-down. The ballots were manipulated so that you had exactly the right turnout per. You would say okay, for this state, we're going to say there was an 84% turnout, which like these are crazy high numbers. I mean, like when they mandate elections in Brazil, you never get over 85%. So to have like, first of all, 87% voter turnout, people are like, okay, no way. So they had to flood the top line, right? They had to get as many votes as possible, but they couldn't overdo it. Right. But then there's all kinds of like some of the Maricopa guys. First of all, you saw there's 74,000 ballots in Maricopa County that had no serial number. Okay, so not really a ballot. Okay, the other thing they had as they looked at this is they found, now you can non-genderize your response, and they said, okay, look, you're gonna have non-gendered responses. You're gonna have it maybe up to people in their 30s, but you're not gonna have people who are 60, 65, and 80 saying decline to state on their gender. And they found that it was the exact same flat curve for decline to state gender across the whole thing. I'm saying, this entire election was a complete fraud, like a massive fraud. We must get to the bottom of it. I don't give a crap about the midterms. Who cares about the midterms? Midterms are nothing. We are on our deathbed. It is time to get radical. And some of the people are saying that every false flag, even the debacle of the Afghanistan pullout, the pickup truck outside the Capitol, all this stuff is happening because guess what? Pennsylvania's marching ahead they're going to be decertified. Georgia's going to be decertified. Arizona's going to be decertified. Guess what? Wisconsin's going to be decertified, and Michigan's going to be decertified, and probably Nevada's going to be decertified. Those things are all going to be decertified, and then what happens? Yeah. Because on the heels of this abomination of an administration, you're going to find out that, in fact, they didn't win at all. They didn't even get close to winning.
Yeah.
And it is a travesty for our nation. I don't care. You can fight me all day long, say that you think that leftism is the way forward. Fine. But if you do not have the real votes and you have to cheat to get there, we have to have an agreement that you don't get to cheat to get there. And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. Well, and you're seeing it more in more of the, very few people know what you were just talking about because the mainstream media is protecting that. There's no evidence according to them. What was I going to say? Oh, the only thing that like a regular person who doesn't go that deep, the only thing that you could see that, okay, we're trying to fix it is all these states are completely overhauling the way they run their elections to make sure to prevent this from happening in the future. So
no. The GOP is making you feel like they're on the way to some sort of, they're pretending like, because I won't give $1. I haven't given $1 to the GOP since November 7, when they were reaching out for election integrity. Rhino McDaniel, goes and gets her $300 million war chest for election integrity, and then just makes Trump pay for it all on his own. Gave a very small amount to election integrity efforts. So they used all these guys, vote all of them out. Crenshaw just came to San Diego. I have zero interest in seeing that guy. He capitulated November 7th. Oh, we got to. I don't want losers. I don't want people who are in the World Wrestling Foundation so they can be the loser guy out there, not taking our goals seriously and just being, I don't want a Mitch McConnell. I don't want a Romney. I don't want a Murkowski. I don't want any of these rhinos in there.
Totally agree with that. But let me push back on Crenshaw because I really like that dude.
I liked him too. I thought he had a great nuclear strategy for us to talk about. But the guy is a joke, and was just in Arizona and had real people who did real data analysis, and they said, "Hey, no, we want you to fight for." These guys are all like, "Let's move on. Let's get focused on the midterms." No, let's get looking at what happened here. Yeah. Who made the call for Fox and everybody to stop counting that night? That was a travesty, and they all did it. You can go play through all the things. This was a world-focused effort to make sure that Donald Trump did not prevail in the election. And they even called it. You saw Bernie Sanders on October 10th say, my worry is what's going to happen is you're going to see Trump way ahead, and then, they're going to actually count these mail-in ballots. He knew damn well what the strategy was. Yeah. So they had it from the bottom. They had it from the top. They had it from the actual interference. I mean, you got a guy in Italy who has turned himself in, said he was given millions of dollars to participate in our Da Vinci satellite interception where we were making changes. I mean, one of the things, the big bust at Lindell's symposium was that he was going to have somebody from Dominion basically do a full confession from the state of Colorado and say, look, we did this thing. Guy got scared, probably had crazy death threats against his whole family and whatnot. And so at the end of the day, all they had was one of the county clerks who was just basically like, look, here's the password. We had the password. Everybody had the password. Everybody has the ability to hack this BIOS. It's like you can basically, you don't even need people on the ground to be, accomplices. They can just basically go like, oh yeah, so there's some backdoors. There's some back doors that we kind of leave open so that, whatever hacker needs to pop in here and do it. So, and go look at Molly McCauley, stabbed in 2018, right? She was looking into what was going on with our own interference in our own elections. I mean, we mock these other countries that don't have real democracies, and then we really don't have a democracy ourselves here. Yeah. And look at Phil Waldron, the great Army lieutenant colonel who was a big part of the symposium. He's like, my job in the Army has been going to Iraq and making sure that they have, they were so proud when they had ink on their hands from going and voting, and we don't have that here. We don't have a real election here, so that's what's happening. I mean, that's what's happening, man.
Hey, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen with? Because it sounds like Dominion is suing him for defamation. What do you think is going to happen with that?
He won't be. He won't be.
Well, see, and see that to me,
that's great. That's great. Let it open.
Well,
Let it go to discovery.
Because that way it will show to a lot of people that maybe just kind of sitting on the sidelines that there was something going on there. If Dominion can't win that defamation suit, that means basically what he was saying was accurate.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Let him take it. Let him go for it. I mean, look, you got to have a full forensic audit. You got to do all this stuff. I mean, there's no two ways about it. This guy did not get 81 million votes. Yeah. He didn't. It didn't happen. So it's not the will of the people. It's not the will of the people. It's not even the will of, and that's the other thing is like, there are people who, the problem with the left is they're so Machiavellian. They're so ends justifies the means. And you know what their thing is? They're like, as long as they can prove that so-and-so got popular vote. Oh, the popular vote. And they're like so bent out of the Hillary, thing. Oh, well, she won the popular vote. We got to get rid of the electoral college. Da, da, da. He didn't even win the popular vote, man. He didn't even win the popular vote. He did not even win the popular vote. They needed that. And so but they've been using this whole idea of, well, who wins the popular vote? Then, if we had to do a little bit of a hustle in these 6 cities, I don't know. You got to also watch. It's not amazing, but Patrick Byrne has the big rig, the deep rig online. The deep rig.online is his. Patrick Byrne is the Overstock CEO who came out big for. He's an American independent. He's never voted for a Republican or a Democrat in his lifetime, but he believed so much in this. In election integrity, and he saw what was going on, and he brought a team of data scientists together and, kind of a ragtag group, but he goes through and each of them kind of gives their testimonial, and some of them have some pretty compelling kind of top-down evidence as to what really happened. So I encourage people to check that out. And like all these things, you got to look at them as pieces. But it's all there, and it's plain and simple, and it's like, what is going to be the thing that makes people actually click and go, okay, right, we didn't have it, and we don't have it, and so and I'm very curious also as to why was that executive order signed so early in Trump's presidency about foreign interference in our elections. He actually had an EO. He actually lays out, okay, here's what the plan is. The military can step in, that we can declare martial law, we can do these things if in fact these conditions are met. To me, it seems like an incredibly prescient piece of legislation to sign. Yeah. To then not take action on it, right? So I sit there and everybody's like, oh, I'm not one of these people who's going to say Trump's going to be back in office by da da da. I mean, like, look, I'm fighting like the rest of the people for just truth and justice and whatnot, and I'm not high on any hopium here. Going, okay, what's going to happen? But it does seem rather strange that there would be such nail on the head legislation with that kind of foresight, only to not take action on it when it clearly happened.
That's
it's crazy, man. And, we're not going to get to 2022. We're going as long as we're keeping this. I mean, they still have other shots at HR1. I mean, HR1. Are you kidding me? We're going to do this mail-in ballot fiasco forever.
Yeah.
No, we're
exactly. It was all supposed to be emergency, quote unquote emergency because of the pandemic, and now they want to make it permanent.
And we already have things that are permanent. 17 days of early voting in Georgia and 14 days in New York. I mean, come on, these are a joke. You don't do this. I mean, it's like people who really want to vote. We're living out the Stalin thing. It doesn't matter who votes; it matters who counts the votes, right? So we're living that out, and we're living that out so long as people tolerate it. And the problem is the side that wants their side to win, the less informed voter, is tolerating this for Machiavellian means. They're going, oh, well, my guy got in. So,
right. You know what? And that's amazing that you say that, because I've talked to people recently, and that's exactly what they say. And that really frustrates me.
I would fight just as hard if there was clear cheating. And also we had to hear that there was cheating on the, the word that I've heard is that the satellite interception stuff didn't happen for whatever reason, for maybe some jam job of I was trying to figure out what's the morsel of truth of Russian collusion. Like, why do they choose this Russian collusion for 4 years and we hear about it nonstop? So, like, is there, I try to see it from both sides. Okay, so what was the morsel of truth? So perhaps the morsel of truth was that there was some jam operation that maybe some of the, some of the GRU was involved in terms of, Putin said, I mean, wasn't in his country's economic interest to have Trump in, but he certainly seemed to respect Trump more than he was going to respect Hillary and her little Staples reset button that she brought as Secretary of State, right? So, like, did the Russians want Trump in just because they're, they understood this is somebody they can reason with, or at least, have negotiations with? Well, if they did, and they in some way stopped the whole satellite hacking program that Molly McCauley was onto, if that in fact happened, then maybe that's if in some way they jammed some of these, you can kind of block out ports that were going to be used for that kind of thing, right? If we were going to have a top-down infection in 2016 where they were sure that she was not going to be beat by Trump, okay, and then when it weren't, they were like, okay, well, what happened? Well, if the irony is, if the Russians had anything to do with the positive integrity of the 2016 election, because that's, people say, well, if there was this kind of cheating and we've had this kind of cheating for that long, then why didn't it happen in 2016? Oh, well, then, why was Trump able to make it into office? Well, you can't have it that way if maybe there was this whole thing. Maybe that's the morsel of truth of Russian interference, is that they interfered for good. Could be.
Jesus.
Could be. I mean, look, I'm distilling it, right? I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm thinking about it the same way with, okay, well, like, with the vaccine, for me, I'm like, oh, well, the vaccines are bad. Why? And we want to do a takeover of the planet with this new world order. I mean, my first, my first instinct on, okay, the vaccines are bad, the vaccines are poison, was to say, well, why would you kill the obedient people? I mean, these are the people that are totally along with these are the people who are going in lockstep. These are the people who are going to show their vaccine card. These are the people who are willing to have a digital ID, implanted into their bio, okay, so why would you do that? So I was like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. Oh, well, maybe the shedding aspect is going to get the people who are less obedient, like me, who don't want the vaccine. Maybe I'm going to be confronted with the bug that they are going to be. I mean, you got to follow the dollar and follow the goal, and say, okay, well, what would be the rationale of doing this?
Yeah, it's amazing talking about the whole 2030 thing and the WEF, and I mean. I would be fascinated to be a fly on the wall in some of those meetings that they have, and just is it as crazy as it sounds? I mean, because it sounds it's nuts. What's going on? What's playing out right now is nuts, but that's exactly what they've laid out. So, what are those meetings like? I mean, I have no idea, and you have no idea. But
I mean, look, we have a very cool economic model with this, constitutional republic that sponsors, capitalism. But the reality is, you had these robber barons kind of coming out of the 19th century, kind of getting into, a place where we're now realizing that, these guys that were the big winners at the beginning of the 1900s really did have, there were always these motives to draw us into these conflicts that could eventually point us towards this idea of a new world kind of syndicate, new world order. And so, I mean, one of the other things I was doing, I was watching while I was in, down with COVID, in addition to watching, I got hooked on the Golden Girls, which I had never seen, and I went nuts for it. I mean, I just think that is one of the funniest sitcoms ever, and I'm just nuts for it. But the other thing I was watching was this great DVD series called The Truth About Cancer, which basically spends a lot of time showing, all these great, alternative medicine ways of confronting cancer, whether it be through, curcumin and, all these supplements that get used around the world. These places in Tijuana that have been curing cancer, and how have they been doing it, after people have gone through chemo and radiation and all these other poisons in their body. And a lot of what they talk about is how, look, you had Rockefeller kind of basically buy out the entire set. He gave these great donations to all the med schools, and on the premise that they taught the curriculum of the med schools, and that was the birth of the pharma industry. And you don't ever hear a doctor tell you to take vitamins, and and you look to see the power game, and you're still seeing it now with a 50-cent pill gets relegated to doesn't work. Right. And here's this
$750 pill.
This is what you need. And so you start to see all these power brokerages, and you see, and that really resonated when I listened to the so that was my diet on COVID, was Golden Girls for the laughter and the levity, Truth About Cancer for the understanding this background of corruption at the highest level in pharma, and then Myron Fagan, listening to Myron Fagan talk about how these guys, from Jacob Schiff bankrolling, people think, oh, well, Russia fell to communism. People don't realize that communism started with Trotsky, where in New York City, in the Lower East Side, these guys went and they had this massive, Lenin had a massive party in Geneva with $20 million in gold bars, and then they went in and they snuck it into Russia, and they funded the Bolsheviks, and you had to fall. It started in New York City. We have communists among us. We have people of great capability who want to rule. They want to use their power and their attitude. And I saw this a lot at Stanford, and I saw this, one of the smartest guys at Stanford, neurophysics guy that was, an advanced physics guy when I was there. I can't say his name, but he's a very, he's super successful, sold multiple companies. And I remember when I was living in New York City, he sat with me, and we would always have these kind of early arguments. This was back in, 2009, when you could actually have political arguments. And, I had my kind of libertarian Randian philosophy, and he was very much New World Order, and here's how it works, and this is undeniable, this is where it's going. He made me read this book, One World, Ready or Not. And I was like, it was basically the whole premise is the Manhattan Project, the atomic, with atomic energy, we simply are going to get to a place where, and they've been using this, they dangled it. We didn't fall for the League of Nations, thankfully, because Henry Cabot Lodge was a respected senator who was the holdout and wouldn't let Woodrow Wilson enter us into that after the First World War. And then you get, and then the United Nations, here we capitulate to the United Nations, and what's their goal? And Rockefeller gave them the land for it to be in New York City. And you see this stuff, and you see these pieces come together, and it's undeniable. This is what's happening. And this, what you talked about in your podcast with World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, and this is happening, and they finally have their chance. But we don't get a chance to. This is not something we get to vote out after.
Right.
We capitulate to this.
Yeah.
We're done.
Hey, let me ask you something real quick. That guy that you're talking about, he was a one world order guy. Why? Because he was a wealthy dude, and he.
Yes.
What was his reason? Why was he thinking that was the way to go?
Some of the smartest intellectuals that I've seen. This is what I have gleaned, I guess, from these kinds of conversations. It is the people who are of the greatest talent. Maybe there's a guilt that they have with their incredible capability. I mean, their mind just sees patterns that quicker.
Yeah.
Why
did they think they should be in control of everybody?
they
because of that?
they
Or
think that they basically they have this idea that to them the idea of a bourgeoisie that sets the structure for the hoi polloi, for the proletariat, who just be the worker. They have this idea that there should be a true kind of caste system, and that they do it out of a feeling of, well, these people can't help themselves. In a lot of ways,
really, it's that sociopathic. Jesus.
it's a very, look at Gates and the vaccines in India, and like these people, there's really not a respect for life. Okay, there's not a respect for life. That's why the irony of us like worried about this 3 in 1,000 case fatality rate. Meanwhile, we've got 60 million abortions over time, and we've got. It's like there's not a respect for life. That's just they use that for in the places where it's convenient for them. But this guy, and I think a lot of really talented people have this mindset that basically either comes out of guilt of their own accomplishment or the ease by which they've kind of come through some sort of blue blood existence into a position of power, and then ultimately, but that's this country, because every society has its intellectuals, and maybe it has a monarchy, or maybe it has some oligarchy of which the intellectuals can be part of, and then it has their and then they have their anybody's that are just working on a feudal kind of system to just barely make it over the edge. But in the threat, the reason why they haven't been able to tackle the United States is because we have such an awesome middle class.
Yeah.
We have an awesome middle class because we have that upward mobility, man.
And that was the original intent of this place, is that anybody could come here from anywhere and on their own backs and their own work can do whatever they want. And like you said, that is not the natural state of humanity throughout time immemorial. So that is so far off the reservation of what humanity has been over the last several millennia, that yes, that's the reason why they need to be chopped down, because it's getting in the way of the way things have gone in the past.
Well, we're listening to these people who think that we have an ideal population size in the world of 500 million. It's like, okay, well, so what are we going to do with the other 8 billion people or whatever it is?
Yeah, 7 billion people.
7.5 billion people who are in the way of that. You can't. What's the goal? And I think there are some theories that effectively, the vaccines are a way by which you can modulate. So, you have to have a way to play. If you're going to allow DNA changes to manifest themselves, you have to have a controller. Well, I've heard some theory, people who are trying to make sense of what this is. The idea that, if you have this mRNA mechanism that could potentially take updates and make changes to, the actual, manifestation of folks' DNA, that effectively you have a worldwide pool of people with whom to test what these different genes do in their expression, because, people get money and then they want power. Yeah. And then after you have power, you want to live forever. Right? Money, power, live forever. Those in that sequence. Me, I feel like I'm not even driven by money. I'm just driven by leave me alone. Let me have my freedom. Right. But money, then you get these guys with the money, then they get the power. And then it's like, what do I want after the power? I want to live forever. So the whole idea of
the transhumanist movement.
Transhumanist
movement. Yeah. Yep.
I could test you. We could try these different symphonies on, and we have an entire global population to test. Oh, what if we turn this gene on? Oh, nope, that killed that person. What if we do? Okay, now we know how to tweak this thing to defy aging. Yeah. Maybe that's one of the goals. I don't know. And if that's the case, then we're in for a long slog. But
dude, we're in the middle of the fourth turning of this earth, and where it stops, nobody knows. But I think, people like you who are as well read as you are, there's definitely a blueprint out there that nobody talks about. And if you are familiar with it, like we are with the whole Agenda 2030, you start to see that these things are actually trying to be put in place. And like you said, the only speed bump right now, and thankfully it's a big one, albeit shrinking quickly, is the American middle class.
The American middle class and the patriots who are trying to keep our way. I mean, I didn't even like call, they think conservatives are reactionary. No, I mean, I think the things that our way of life has lifted more people out of poverty, has kept more people free. It's a mechanism that works. And to the extent that we find corruption and where it doesn't work, I would argue that they are deviations from that premise. And we are, I mean, we've talked previously about, kind of like the blight of the kind of urban centers in our country for various reasons. I mean, like, whether it's manufacturing jobs going away or, a welfare system that incentivizes people to be, broken up, or single family parents. I mean, these kinds of things are deviations from our template that we think are pretty good. And so, and I rarely make the kind of the Judeo-Christian kind of case, because I think you can see and fight for liberty, context that's away from Christianity or really any sort of spiritual compass. But the idea that was kind of enshrined in our founding documents, which basically said, look, the rights are not for a government to give you. The rights are God-given rights, and whatever you want to call God, or, they are your rights in terms of your sovereignty as an individual. And we got it. I mean, I don't know. It's sad to me that the kids these days don't get it, because they didn't. And it's not like I don't consider myself like an incredible student of civics. I had zero interest in anything other than math and science as a kid. But I understand the core principles and why we have better opportunity here than you see in these other nations.
And you just said it right there. It's the sovereign individual that can make their own destiny. And the whole concept of the Judeo-Christian morality laws that have been around for thousands of years. The only way that is able to survive as long as it has is with people who adhere to those rules and those laws. And I think, one of the things I noticed, this is, in my view, how close we are to really complete chaos, was that video showing that kid in that department store in San Francisco, just walking out literally with both hands full of clothing, just off the rail. And the people that were videoing him walking out were actually standing in line waiting to pay for their merchandise. They're the good people. And as soon as those good people are like, what am I doing paying for this when I can just walk out the door? As soon as that happens, then we're done. And thankfully, we still have that level of character and integrity.
But you got to take somebody aside and say, well, who voted for Prop 47? Who voted? Look at the proposition that was on the ballot and who was in favor of it and who was not in favor of it. Like, start aligning your values to your vote, because if you want this chaos to continue, I mean, I had the experience at CVS. Within the last 2 months. I was there. I was waiting. The guy was at the counter, CVS down the street from me. I walk in and I'm watching a guy, and he's got his bike in the store. He's got a huge garbage bag of stuff, and he's at the checkout counter, ringing up, making sure he's not going over $950.
No way.
The cashier finishes ringing up, and he goes, all right, cruises out on his bike, rides right out the store.
Insane.
And I look at him, I say, so that guy was never going to pay. And he goes, no, he's just ringing up to see how close he was. I'm like, he said, yeah, we got a budget for that. So, I mean, like, and then, you know, and it's a new, not only that, it's a new CVS. The CVS has only been there for a year. Okay, so the CVS has been there for a year.
Yeah.
Who at the corporate level goes, oh yeah, let's, you know, the real corporate commercial real estate guys are like, all right, how many eyeballs are seeing? Okay, so what do we got demography wise? You're coming by here. Okay, this is a perfect place for a CBS. Okay, let's rent this. They built it out. They built the building. It's not, it wasn't even like it wasn't even like an empty tenant. They built out the building, brand new CVS, and it's all homeless people in there all the time. I'm like, is this store making any money? And so sure enough, Prop 47, $950 maximum, not illegal. These guys just mark it up. Oh yeah, this guy, at least he knows how much his loss was. He's like, oh, okay, let's see. Let's just look at the ticker. Let's look at the, let's just go ahead and print out his receipt as if he had paid and send it into our insurance. Right?
And most of those people in those cities, and I don't know if San Diego's one, but San Francisco, all the major cities that are having all these serious upticks in crime and all this stuff, all the DAs were put in there, funded by Soros.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I forget the Chesney with the guy in San Francisco. I mean, he's getting some pushback now, but it's like, guys, do you understand? These judges are strategic. I mean, why do you think every time there's some case against Trump or whatnot, they take it to Emmett Sullivan? They always take it to this one guy. It's like, oh, so we have all these federal judges, and it's like a random lottery, but you always give it to this corrupt judge who always does the wrong thing. It's like, come on, people. Are you not seeing? They are doing this on purpose. Yeah. But the normal people are not seeing it. You know, my fiance's at jury duty this week, and she's watching all this stuff on Afghanistan, and she's over on Twitter and whatnot, and like she's got a well-dressed 60-year-old woman next to her, kind of curious, like, oh, what are you looking into? Like, oh, it's Afghanistan. And she goes, Afghanistan? What's going on in Afghanistan? Oh, what's going on? Oh, I'm sorry. What's going on in Afghanistan? Oh, is our country burning? Or are we just melting down? Like, I'm sorry. Are you paying attention? Are you paying attention yet? It's just not. It's not happening. And you're doing a good job of kind of. I mean, for me, people think I'm an extremist. You know, people are like, "Oh, this guy's way out there, crazy right winger." I go on the, I try to go on the Young Turks shows, and they just try to beat me up and go, "Oh yeah, this guy," and all I get are death threats and email. People come find my Congress website and just, send me all kinds of, disaster haranguing. It's like, follow my argument on the merits. Follow my argument. Like, okay, you want to debate me? You just want to shut people up and make them. They want us to cower in fear and say, okay, look, this is how this is going. This is how this is going to go forward. Yeah. And then we lose our country. So I mean, and I'm not even fighting that hard. I mean, I wasn't down at the county administration building yesterday yelling at, Nathan Fletcher and all these supervisors like a lot of these people were. But these people want us to fail. Look at Nathan Fletcher's tweets today. One of the senators said something like, that very first plane that came out of Afghanistan that was just like filled with, with fighting age men from Afghanistan. And somebody said, hey, who wants these guys in their city? And Nathan Fletcher retweets it with put your hand up if you want these guys in the city. And Nathan Fletcher retweets it with his hand up. Here, please. It's like, is that what you want? You want to just be overrun with these refugees? They want to take on these 60,000 refugees, and it's going to be more than that. It's like, oh, is that the strategic move? Let's let in, we take on 1.8 million legal immigrants every year, and we've already had 1 million cross our southern border illegally this year. Are we reducing? Are we going to only take on 800,000 EB-5s and H-1B visas and all the skilled laborers to balance out the million that we took in? No, we got COVID and all these cities. I mean, we must point out their hypocrisy. We must point out the degree to which they are not they're not doing things consistent with the idea of protecting the American people and protecting our
And the one thing I find fascinating is, like you were talking about, you're getting all these death threats and all this crap on your Twitter feeds and all that. Most of that shit is robo.
Yeah,
so it's not even. It's so if people
Jenny 8573472.
Yeah, if the guy behind the curtain. There is no guy behind the curtain. It's all robotic. Then they can start to be like, what am I afraid of here? Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
Dude. It's gonna
also because it gives people the sense that a lot of people, somebody gets ratioed on one of their tweets. They go, oh yeah. I didn't really follow the details, but it looks like a lot of people had a lot of points why that guy's idea is wrong.
Yeah.
And they jump on but also, like, what are you and look, you're Rain Man. You fought, you have fought for liberty for other countries and keeping us from having wars at home. We and all these guys that lost limbs in Afghanistan and whatnot, and they have to see that we so easily capitulate. And listen to Laura Logan. Laura Logan's been saying great stuff yesterday. Like, hey, everybody knows the Taliban is funded through Pakistan. We have been kowtowing to Pakistan for however long because they're a nuclear nation. She goes, we have 1 million financial and diplomatic ways to cut off the flow of the funds of the Taliban and their takeover of Afghanistan, but we don't do it. So clearly we're interested in these forever wars. Yeah. And anybody who tells the other, and sure, I thought Biden's statement that he came off, why not just make that statement from Camp David? Well, you're at Camp David. They rush him to the White House. They make sure to make a big scene about him rushing and he goes up there into the yellow curtain room in the White House, does his thing, and then gets right back and goes right back on vacation. Are you kidding me? What a joke. Just a slap in the face of the American people to be doing this. And now the new warriors, I didn't fight. I grew up at West Point, did not fight. The new warriors are people. We have a domestic threat, and it's not people like me or people who are at the Capitol. We have a pending threat that we will fall from within, just like Lincoln predicted. And here it is. And we are here. And until people realize that the WEF, the UN, the WHO, China, these are elements that are looking to see us on our knees. We got Chinese military training on
right off the coast of Taiwan. Yeah.
Not only there, we got them training on our own Indian reservations here. We've got Bill Gates is now the biggest farmland holder in our states. We got farmers that are being paid 3x what their farm value is worth so that they won't produce, so that they will just bend over. So we're going to have, potential supply chain problem with food supply. We could be on our knees so soon as a nation. And it's like right now we're the frog just short of boiling. Yep. Who are we going to wake up? And what do we do? Who do we impeach? Yeah. We can impeach Nathan Fletcher, but then they're just going to put another leftist in there in the board of supervisors here. Then we can impeach Biden, but that just gets us Kamala. What do we do without force to convince the hearts and minds, or to overturn this election? Show that in fact it was stolen. That in fact it didn't have the integrity checks that was necessary. But we are in the fight of our lives right now. We are in the fight of our lives. Wait till they bump the interest rates. Wait till this eviction moratorium goes over. We are on the precipice, man. So Brian, I don't know. I don't know. Do you have this sense of fear? Do you and your people have this sense of fear? Or am I the only one just spouting out like crazy soapbox theories?
If you read and watch as much information as we do, you can't help but be frustrated and flat out concerned. And I totally agree. Hey, listen, brother, this has been an awesome trip down the rabbit hole, as usual.
We're preaching to the choir, though, man. We're preaching to the choir. We got to get this thing seen. We got to get Rain Man's take seen.
They should get several thousand looks.
All right.
So, hey, listen, brother, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you very much. It was great catching up with you.
Great to chat. Congrats on all the momentum with Rain Man's Take.
Trying to get the word out.
I'm glad you are fighting the good fight. And sorry, I'll you can send me a bill for this therapy session.
Hey guys, listen. If you're in the military, the police departments, fire departments, or first responders, if that's you out there, thank you for your service. Stay safe. Mike Oristian, great talking to you, brother.
All right. Till next time.
Do it again soon.
All right.
All right, guys. It's the Rain Man. Thanks for watching.
Well, Brian.
Thanks for watching Rain Man's Take, observations on the world we live in. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow Rain Man's Take on Instagram at Rain Man's Take. Also, check out our website at www.rainmanstakepodcast.com and send your comments to rainmanstake@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, which will be coming out every Thursday at 5 p.m. West Coast time.